Composer Gloves here, and this is the 9th video in the Kontakt from the Ground Up tutorial series. And today we're going to talk about instruments, banks, and multis. Just kind of discuss the differences between them because it's important that you understand if you don't know. So if we were to open up one instrument, an instrument is this is an alto saxophone, but it could be any setup. It could be drum loops. It could be maybe chords on a guitar being strummed in patterns, or it could be, what we would equate to as an actual instrument. And what an instrument is it's got its own samples that it's working off of and sort of its own deal. And that's pretty much all there really is to an instrument. Making the instruments is where it gets crazy. Some instruments have performance views, some don't. And once you introduce two instruments and you have them respond to the same signal, you have now created a multi. And multis can be told to behave all sorts of different ways. You can use scripting up here, and you can they have a bunch of preset scripts, and you can use these to affect entire sets of sounds so that they behave differently. Maybe this one will fade in to this one to create the idea that there is like a thicker texture but a thinner texture at the beginning, or maybe it fades out so you have a really thick punch, but then it fades out to just the alto saxophone. Things like that are possible through the use of scripts on multis, and that is what a multi is. That's what an instrument is. Now we have this thing called a bank, and I've shown you how to set up multis in previous videos so that it works with your system. So let's go into our files tab and let's go to new instrument bank. We get this thing, and what a bank does is, this is why you'd want to use a bank as opposed to something else. Let's say you've got, it's because most of the time you're not going to want to use a bank. It just doesn't make sense. So here we have a baritone saxophone, right? And that's what it sounds like. Oh, this one doesn't have key switches. Let's get one with key switches. So here we have our sax section, and it's got a bunch of key switches. What are these? Well, if we go into our instrument edit panel, and we're going to be talking about this later, we go to our mapping editor, our group editor, we'll see that there are different samples for different groups, and these switches switch us between those different groups. And so if we go to our performance view, we can look at our articulations here, and you could control these with the key switches down here. Instead, you see our knob is moving around as a result of that. So right now we have it on this particular group of samples. And if we go up one, we get staccato versus this one holds it out. And so on most instruments, you just put that note in your MIDI sequencer. You play what is this, like a C0 or whatever, and you play whatever note that is, and boom, it will switch to that group of samples. But let's say you have them on separate instruments. Like you've got a saxophone here you really like, and maybe you've got a saxophone here you really like, and you want to combine them so that they are one and the same. What you can do is, instead of having two MIDI channels to control one instrument, you could drop them in your multi, so in your bank. So you put them in your bank, and boom, now you are able to switch between them using MIDI program changes. See, now this is something, now that you can see why you'd want to use it, this is something I've never used. I've never really needed to use. And I still have the problem of sending program changes in FL Studio. But I've figured out this much. By the way, there's no information anywhere on the internet on this. I have looked and I've just gotten confused. But if we open up a MIDI out, so this is what we were using in the previous videos to control our stuff. The way you send program changes is you switch patch. So right now it's on patch 1, patch 1. Oh, we got to make sure that our port's on correctly too, as the same as in other videos. Okay, so this is patch 1. These are all on the same channel too. So this isn't MIDI channels. These are program MIDI changes. And if we want to send a different one, we go to patch 2. And boom. Now it switches to that instrument and whatever settings are on that one. And we can go back. And you could double click to change the instrument and then go back. And you could save your bank and put it in your quick folder section and all that jazz. But this is the problem I have, and if anyone knows the solution, do tell, because I don't know how to automate patch changes. So if you know, spill the beans, man, because it's a cool idea, a cool option, but again, it's one that I've never really needed to use. But in case you're really curious about banks, that's what banks are, and that's how they work, and that's how you get them and set them up. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Subscribe if you enjoy these videos. Check out my music on composedgloves.com and have a blessed day.